This is it, gang. The end of 2022.
So, at last we meet for the first time for the last time.
But before we call it, I've got 10 more metal albums from December you won't want to miss. And we're starting with Qrixkuor with Zoetrope. I don't normally go in for the whole single long composition album thing, but for these guys I make an exception. They really wowed me right from their debut in the expert harnessing of all sounds menacing and malevolent, and with their expanded incorporation of symphonic instrumentation, the results speak for themselves. And despite this being a standalone 27-minute affair, Qrixkuor keep it incredibly engaging by breaking it up into distinct movements. First sounding like a spiral into the abyss before the eerie, screeching strings build slowly into the barbaric pounding drums of being dragged through the torments of hell, and finally concluding once more where they began with the subtle call of the siren. Then we have Congealed Putrescence with Congealed Putrescence. Yes, that took a few takes. How about rounding out your year with some gnarly, no-frills death metal? This New Orleans band really brings the filth, to quote their own press release, like foulest rot bubbling up from the sewer. I think about bands like Vermin Womb, Knoll, and maybe even the more straightforward moments of Full of Hell. It's just 4 songs, but they will absolutely claw the brains from your skull right down to that sickening final solo of Burning Off. Next up is Despite Exile with Wound. This was one of the most requested albums from the audience this month, and I can see why. In many ways, I'd compare this Italian band's sound to that of the latest Fit for an Autopsy release, fusing elements of deathcore, progressive, and even more melodic influences for an atmospheric take on the genre. For those reasons, I could also see fans of the latest Lorna Shore album also lapping up the very emotionally driven vibe. Lots of peaks and valleys from melancholic ambient sections to crescendos of blast beats and soaring reverb-soaked hooks. Another must-listen for deathcore fans this year.
Not bad, not bad.
Then we have Woods of Desolation with The Falling Tide. Now, if you love really visceral, emotionally driven black metal in the vein of Harakiri for the Sky, you should also be a fan of Woods of Desolation. This Australian project's jangly guitar melodies and raspy snarls really pull at the heartstrings, sounding like pure sorrow and desperation ripped straight from someone's breaking heart, but with faint glimmers of light just out of reach. These teases of hope come in the form of sparkly, shimmery, shoegazy-influenced guitars, but without ever losing that classic black metal grit. This isn't the more modern approach of acts like Deaf Heaven, it's just similar ideas conveyed in a manner much more grounded in the genre's original aesthetic, and the result is utterly captivating.
Dear God, it's beautiful.
Then we have Ready for Death with Ready for Death. This Chicago band combines thrash with touches of grimy grindcore reminiscent of Napalm Death. Everything just feels so raw and brash and gnarly, and the lyrics are absolute vitriol spewing forth like an overflow of sewage. Just ugly, visceral, flesh and bone dragged across concrete kind of music from someone who really woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Give the gift of piss and vinegar this holiday season to someone you'd rather not see again in the future.
I'm on my fucking lunch break, okay?
By the way, we're only halfway through here, but like the video if you're enjoying it, and comment your own favorites down below as we go along. But next up, we have Violent Answer with Self-Threat. Poland is known for low-key some of the best black metal you can find, but every now and then they also deliver on some seriously punishing metalcore. Violent Answer is everything a fan of the likes of Jesus Peace, Harm's Way, and Knocked Loose could want, and then some. This is that punch to the gut, heavily hardcore influence stuff that makes the average Killswitch fan piss their pants. And another reminder that people who think metalcore is all soft shit for scene kids just aren't really paying attention.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
Then we have Kruna with For Thine is the Kingdom of the Flesh. It really was quite a month for black metal of all shapes and sizes. Kruna is of the malevolent and imposing variety, seeming to take tips from the likes of Watain, but also with some of the folkier guitars of both Toke and Rotting Christ, cascading like waterfalls of dark melancholy. At times, the atmosphere also reaches similar heights as Oculus in how dense and entrancing it can be on tracks like In the Absence of Gods, but then can also break away for a pretty stunning melodic solo, both light and dark in a seemingly perfect balance.
Perfectly balanced.
Next up is Veilburner with Veilburner. Another absolutely sick and underrated band that doesn't get nearly the respect it deserves. This duo has been dropping brain-meltingly psychedelic black metal since 2014, and this sixth outing doesn't skimp on the madness. In fact, I named it one of my favorite black metal albums of 2022. Like, I listen to these guitars and frothing, unhinged sermons of Chrism, and I just can't help but turn into Sam Neill at the end of In the Mouth of Madness. As I've said a few times now, it's like Deathspell Omega hopped up on LSD and PCP.
Butt naked, ill, charm, dust.
Then we have Scalpel with Century in the Boilpit. This Boston death metal band absolutely blew me away with 2017's Methods of Delusion, and it's a shame how late in the year this follow-up is dropping because I think it easily could have made some lists as well. Mix that old school raw sentiment and brutality with a more modern take on technicality, and it's a recipe for a total banger. The guitar work is like a swarm of insects, the drumming absolutely maniacal, and you're rarely far from an explosion of Skwisgaar-worthy soloing. Highly recommended for fans of Gigan, Replicaer, and Gorguts, but also influenced by the likes of Suffocation and Death.
Disgusting!
And then another highly requested album this month is Misthyrming with Med Hamri. With the release of their 2015 debut, this Icelandic black metal band basically became an overnight sensation. And now, just 3 albums in 7 years later, the underground still excitedly awaits each new release. And I'm happy to say that I think this one tops the last one in every possible way. The amount of variety on display here really covers the entire gamut of the genre, coming in hot with the sheer hellfire of the title track, following that up with the folkier swing of Med Harmi, getting grandiose with Engin Mishkun, only to scale things back for the hypnotic head bob of Engin Vorkun. Then there's the brass and haunting chorals of Blodhefend, leading into the menacing piano of the blizzard of a closer, Aftaka. What a way to close out the year. Check out this playlist for all of my best of the month videos of 2022, and thank you for an amazing year. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.